What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be back to work on our 1966 Ford Mustang. It's basically a brand new car now since that we got rid of the old one. And in today's video, I want to try to get the body actually mounted up to the frame. So let's go ahead. We're going to start with getting all these old parts off. We just lined them all up just for mock-up, just to see how all the clearances are. And we notice we will have to do a little bit of trimming on the cowl section, which is fine. But now let's go ahead and get off all these parts. So we got all the body panels off the Mustang, and we are going to be lowering the body down just a little bit, and I have a really good idea of how we're going to do these frame rails. We are going to be doing a bit of redesigning over here, and what we're going to do is lower the body down and then send another rail off over here, and it's going to slide perfectly into the body of the Mustang just like that, and then it'll get welded right there, and we'll probably even drill some spots right here and weld all that up really good. So let's go ahead and start lowering this body down and see how we're going to do these frame rails. So we went ahead and lowered the entire body down a couple of inches, and we went ahead and test fitted the fender. Everything lines up beautifully up there, and we also clamped the rear subframe to the actual frame rails. Everything is nice and tight, and I'm pretty sure the wheelbase is correct. We're going to be checking that in a second, but what we're going to do now is start planning out how we're going to do these new frame rails. What we're going to do is we have this frame rail right here. It's going to slide inside the body, so this is basically what's going to weld the body to the actual frame. And then we're probably going to come off somewhere, maybe splice it in just like that, and then this one will go all the way across there. And then what we can do is also make another frame rail come in here and make it go like this somehow, and then back, so we can actually lower the seat down just a little bit. And we're not going to cut this frame rail until we have all the other frame rails welded in place, and then we can trim it off and weld everything together. So let's go ahead and start doing some measurements and start cutting. So we have our frame rail cut to size, and we actually have to remove this little reinforcement bracket that they have from the factory because our frame rail won't slide in there, and this is just gonna be a lot stronger than that little bracket. So we got a drill. Let's go ahead and drill it out. So we got the right side frame rail installed under the rocker panel, and it fits in there nice and perfect. Now what we need to do is exactly the same thing over here. On the driver's side, we need to remove this bracket that slides in there. So let's go ahead and remove this side and get another frame rail piece cut for this side. So we got both frame rail rocker panels stuffed inside the rocker of the Mustang, and we went ahead and measured out the distances. It's supposed to be 55.5 from this little piece to here. So we got all that properly set up. Now what we need to do is actually work on getting this frame rail connected to here. And the weird thing is the Mustang up here, it is actually 54 3/4, so it kind of goes in a little bit. So we're gonna have to cut two pieces, one for the rear right here and then one for here. So let's get the saw out and start cutting again. So we have all our pieces cut. We have one for the rear that's gonna slide in just like that, and then we're gonna weld it all up to there. And then we also have our front piece over here. And what that's gonna do is basically connect our entire body to our frame, and then later we're gonna weld up this seam right here, and then we're gonna drill holes and kind of weld that up there. So the entire body will be connected to the frame. So let's go ahead and clean these pieces up, clean the frame up, and get them welded in. So we got all the pieces cleaned up. We just hit them with the little flap disc, got them all ready to weld. But we also went ahead and adjusted the wheelbase properly. Now it's at 108 inches from the front to the back. On the 2015 Mustang, it is 107.1. So we kind of just lengthened it a little bit. We'll probably have to get a custom drive shaft. But now that that's done, the body is also sitting in the perfect area. We're gonna go ahead and get these frame rails back on there and get them welded in. So we basically have the body now attached to the frame. We actually took off all the jack stands that were holding the body up, and everything is holding up pretty good. We're not gonna weld the body to the actual frame yet. We just have it on there and it slipped in there real nice. So once we do get ready, after we build the roll cage and build most of it, then we can weld the actual body to the frame. But for now, it's just holding on there nice and secure. Now what we're gonna do is actually move on to the front. We need to build these front shock tower things. I have a good idea exactly how we're gonna do it, so let's go ahead and start building them. So the first thing we're gonna have to do is actually trim this down a little bit, because if you notice on this shock, it does not sit perfectly straight. It sits kind of like this right here, so it's kind of a weird angle. I don't know why they did it like that, but what we're gonna have to do is trim these sides and actually slip this in there just like that, so we can kind of have it at an angle. So let's go ahead and give this a cut. So we got both brackets nice and cut. Now what we need to do is get the grinder and go ahead and clean up all this metal over here, and also clean up all the metal on these tubes and go ahead and tack weld them in. So we got it all lined up. Now we're gonna go ahead and start welding it all up. So we got both shock towers welded up, everything lined up beautifully. We got that done finally. Probably one of the hardest things I had to do, just lining everything up. Now what we're gonna do is actually start working on the rear, because I really wanna get this car rolled off the frame. I wanna get it a rolling chassis. So let's go ahead and get started in the rear. So now we're gonna get started with working on the rear subframe mounts. We've already built both brackets on the side, so all we have to do now is clean them all up and get them welded on, because we have already set up the wheelbase. It's at 108 inches from front to rear, exactly what the original Mustang is. We'll have to get a custom drive shaft made, because the older Mustang, or the newer Mustang, is actually 107 inches. So let's go ahead and start cleaning up all these mounts and get them welded on. So we have all the brackets nice and cleaned up. Now what we're gonna do is basically use this frame rail right here as a template, and then we'll probably tack weld it all together, and then we'll transfer it over there and get it welded up fully. So we got these brackets nice and welded up. Let's go ahead and put them on the car and get them welded in. So we got the rear subframe welded to the frame rails. Well, we got the brackets on there. Everything is welded. Now what we're gonna do is actually put the wheels on this thing and try rolling it off the lift finally. So let's go ahead and get the wheels, put it on here, and see if we can roll this thing off. So we're gonna use these wheels right here. These are our old rims. My buddy actually painted them, but they didn't fit on his car. So we're gonna go ahead and put these on the car and roll it off. So we got all four wheels on the car, and we went ahead and lowered it down. We also went ahead and aired up these airbags and just put a vice clamp in there, because obviously we don't have the entire system there. But all that's looking pretty good. It seems like it's gonna be holding pretty tight. And in the back, we kind of just put some metal rods instead of the airbags, because we're still gonna have to figure out a way to do that. But now we're gonna just go ahead and roll this thing completely off the lift. So we got the entire car rolled off, and we did have to inflate the airbags in the front right here. We basically just aired it up and then clamped it off because we don't have all the lines yet, but we'll set all that up later. And everything is looking pretty good. All the clearances are going good. That looks like it's gonna hold pretty tight. And in the rear, we did have to put these S2000 rims on here because the other ones wouldn't fit. They're just a little bit too big, but the offset of this rim actually lines up pretty good. So we might have to just take the dimensions of that, and it's just gonna stick out just a little bit in the back. And then over here, we welded only these two brackets up right here, and we still have to build the brackets for over there, but it's gonna be a lot easier now that it's on the ground. We got everything lining up pretty good. Now what we're gonna do is actually move the car over to this area right here, and then start building the front end of it. So now that we have the car right here, what we're gonna do is start working on getting it all back together. We got the fenders, so let's grab the fenders and just start putting everything back together. Now what we need to do is actually cut off this entire lip right here, because this is exactly where our wide body is gonna go, just like that. So let's get the grinder, tape it off, and get it cut. So we got both front fenders cut and ready for the wide body flares. We're gonna go ahead and put them on in the front, and then we are also gonna go ahead and put the rear quarter panels back on and start lining everything up, because this is the most crucial part of the build. We wanna make sure the body is sitting perfectly aligned, all the panels, before we do any welding. So let's go ahead and get these fenders on and then throw the quarter panels on in the rear. So we got all the sheet metal parts on the Mustang, and we kind of just put them on there just to see how everything is lining up, and it's looking good. And in the next video, we will start building the actual cross members to actually hold the fenders on properly, because they're not on all the way. We have a little bit of a gap here. They just need to be adjusted, but we got mostly everything together. We put the doors on. Still having a little bit of a trouble fitting everything up, but that's expected, especially with all these new body panels. We got mostly everything back here. Now this is gonna be the easier part of this build, because the suspension and the frame was just the most hardest part, because I had to redo a lot of stuff, you know, cutting and welding, because that's like the most important part. Now most of this stuff is basically just collision. That's what I usually specialize in, is just putting parts together like on the frame machine. Not really too good with working on frames, but hey, we made it work. We're still working on it, learning as we go. It's the cool thing about it. And then we will be doing the wide body flares. As you can see, these wheels actually flared up pretty daggum good. That's kind of how exactly what I wanted, was just a little bit of wheel coming out, just so we don't have to go too aggressive with the wide body, because we don't want to make it look weird or ugly. And then that's gonna be pretty much it. So that's gonna be a wrap for today's video. We got a lot of work done. We finally drove the car off the lift. I'm super excited to continue working on it, because now it's just gonna be the easy parts of just lining up the body panels. But if you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe, and also hit up vTuned.com. We only have a limited supply of these shirts. These are the older notchback shirts that we have. We are coming out with some new ones, so get you one of those before they sell out. And also follow me on Instagram at vTuned. Thanks for watching.